So welcome to CSE 255. It's Friday, thank God. And we're going to walk through the tasks, 5 tasks required for the 3.3 solution to work Snapshot power. And so you can experience how versatile and robust this thing is. Before you start up though, there's some prep that you ought to work in your virtual machine and on your local host. One thing you'll notice is that when you start working with administrative tools, and if you work with servers, and the server provides a network service to other connected clients like DNS, it's a really bad thing when the IP address keeps changing. Put another way, you have this thing called binding. Has anyone ever heard of the term binding before?
Just in a general sense, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing that you're saying binding the IP address to the device, right?
Yeah, so if you're running a service like DNS and then the IP address changes, the service could be running bound to the old address, which means it's gonna lose its way. It's not gonna be able to do the job it's intended to do. So one of the best ways to work this is to go ahead and decide right now that you're going to manipulate your local network environment so that both your host and your virtual machine will be parked on a fixed static network assigned address, okay? So the best way to do that is not to first plug it in there, okay? You could go in here and you could go in here and then you could look at it and you could open this up and then you could pick an address and then do this. The only problem with plugging it in straight away is if an address is already being taken up by another device in the neighborhood, you want to make sure that your server and your host, your virtual machine and your host machine are sitting on 2 of the last addresses that are unused, okay? So what we're going to do is pause the recording and we'll go ahead and take a look at each of these environments with you. And the goal to prepare for your solution for success is to go ahead and make those changes so that there's a static assignment and that your DHCP service on the Wi-Fi router is synced up with that. And if you happen to revert back to DHCP again, what will happen with a DHCP reservation or IP assignment on your Wi-Fi router is that you take the MAC address of this and then you plug it into your Wi-Fi router, and even if it's DHCP, it'll always keep that IP address ready and available only for your server, only for your virtual machine, only for your laptop. That's what an IP assignment or DHCP reservation will do. Doesn't mean you can't provide Wi-Fi service to everybody else in your home network. It just means that you're going to have an anchor, and that way the binding won't come back to haunt you. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to pause recording and stop sharing, and I'd like the first volunteer to share their Wi-Fi router administrative options, and let's look and see what devices have which IP addresses right now. And another thing that you're going to want to do is open up your own system if it's already got one, and just look at the details so you can reference this MAC address for your virtual machine. You'll do the same for your host machine. If you're using like a Wi-Fi address, you can go into here and then click information. And then here you have the MAC address for your Wi-Fi interface on the host machine. So you'd have both of those handy, okay? Now, if you don't have those handy, you can be working on that while I work with the first person, all right? So I'll stop sharing, I'll pause the recording, we'll get everybody in a good place. And then we'll come back to here. And this goes pretty quickly, actually, if everything is working like it's supposed to. Yeah, this thing is actually a very easy, quick, simple solution, provided everything's working right. But now, the same things that make for a good solution are also the same things that make for good admin tools. If you have PowerShell or Windows Admin Center, if you're doing other things that are supposed to be working fine and they aren't, this is a good place to start troubleshooting, okay? All right, so I'll stop sharing. I'll pause the recording.
Would you make like a recording of like how we did this today
So
with the DNS?
yeah, I do have a recording of the same basic process. So Akeem was just asking, we just did some troubleshooting and we established an IP assignment or a DHCP reservation on the Wi-Fi router with one of the student home networks. And then we used the same information and assigned the same IP address, manually entered it as a static IP address on the VM server and on the physical host.